This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Just a warning, this episode contains topics that might be triggering for some people who are listening. If you need some assistance, contact Lifeline on 131114, 131114.
To She Wasn't Born Yesterday for women who are 40 plus fabulous by the Empty Nest Chicks. I'm Janet Evans, ex-M&C Saatchi advertising creative who have won numerous radio and TV awards. Not that that'll affect us because we're doing a podcast.
And I'm Dr. Amelia Haynes, who has been a medical doctor for 30 years and specialising in sexual health and mental health and relationships, and I'm generally a very useful human being.
Well, we'll find out about that, but we are here to work together.
People tell me on good authority that I am.
Really? Yes, well, they never say that to me, so I think we're the perfect hosts for She Wasn't Born Yesterday. Well, Dr. Amelia, here we are again. And once again, we're tackling a pretty serious topic today, which is child sexual abuse in churches, which, is a pretty heavy topic.
It is heavy.
But fortunately, we do have an expert with us here today to help us shed some light on this and also just let us know what's going on with this whole situation. She is the Pastoral Care Coordinator for the Church Missionary Society of New South Wales and ACT, formerly Chaplain for the Sydney Anglican Church's Professional Standards Unit. It is, in fact, the amazing and fabulous Jenni Woodhouse. Welcome, Jenni. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Dr. Amelia, I actually would have thought, there's been a lot of awareness and documentaries and news stories and a royal commission about institutional responses to child sexual abuse. We know there's been a lot of restitution monies paid. A lot of survivors have come forward, but one suspects that that's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't know about you, but I would have thought that the problem was improving or at least going away or getting better. But perhaps I'm just being completely deluded. What's your take?
Janet, darling, I think that it's really lovely of you that you feel like it should be getting better, and it says a lot about your optimism in life in general. Me, I'm feeling we're just kind of peeling the egg. We're getting the eggshell off the egg, and we haven't really dived into the egg yet. I don't know. That's just my gut feeling. Maybe I'm a pessimist. I've never thought that before, but maybe I am. I think we should ask Jen.
Yeah. Jen, you have kind of seen it all before, haven't you? As part of the Professional Standards Unit, what was your actual role there?
My role to begin with for the first 5 or 6 years was as a contact person. So there were 5 contact people and we met directly with the complainants who were making the complaints of abuse in churches, and then we documented those complaints and put them in to be dealt with by the Professional Standards Director. It became quite apparent after a number of years that actually we needed someone to walk alongside the complainants through that complaint procedure because it took quite a long time. And so in 2002 or 3, I can't remember, I was employed as the chaplain for the chaplain to victims, it was called, but basically it was the person who walked alongside the complainants, heard the stories, helped them document it, and just was there as they were waiting for an outcome.
And so would this be, for example, like if it was child sexual abuse, would it be the parents who are coming forward on behalf of their kids?
All of the above. We had 2 main groups of complainants that, this is me, anecdotal, I presume it's still the same, I don't really know. Half the complainants were women complaining of being sexually abused within churches by ministers. The other half of our complaints were complaints, but usually by men who had been sexually abused as children in churches or church-run institutions.
Wow. It seems to be a really common thing that, and I've watched some very powerful documentaries. I don't know if you saw Revelation by Sarah Ferguson. It was on the ABC, but investigating the cover-ups by the Catholic Church over many years of, bringing up kids in these kind of orphanages where they were just like absolute prey for these pedophile priests who were moved around from parish to parish when it was obvious that they were doing things. But today, it seems that the victims are coming forward like 30 years later, when they're adults. Why is that, do you think?
It takes on average about 25 years for someone to speak up about child sexual assault. There are many reasons for that. I guess and there's intrafamilial sexual abuse, which is somebody within the family sexually abusing a child, and there's extrafamilial sexual assault, which is somebody known to the family committing the crime. Within churches, well, I can really only talk about anecdotally within the Anglican Church in Sydney. Most of the crimes were committed by extrafamilial people. So there were institutions, the Charlton boys' homes or some of the girls' homes. They were the SEBs, which were the Church of England Boys Society clubs that were run in
kind of scouts for Anglicans.
Okay.
Yeah, there were organists, there were youth group leaders, there were people who were, one of the worst ones was a fellow who was a musician, who was a teacher, music teacher at a couple of schools in Sydney. And at church on Sunday, he would lead the music team, but he offered himself to many of the families in the church to teach their boys piano. And it was very handy when both the parents worked. So, it's okay, I'll just let myself in and, your son and I will have our music lesson in your place and I'll look after him till you get home. So there's a whole range of different ways that people accessed the kids. Those kids, the extrafamilial abusers, the kids that they abused, take on average about 25 to 30 years to speak up about that. The amount of shame that is involved in that, the confusion around sexuality, the fear that if I tell someone in a church that this marvellous, marvellous man whom everybody loves, he's groomed the minister, he's groomed the leaders in the church, he's groomed the parents, and now he's got access to the kid, how can I possibly tell anyone they won't believe me? So if I tell anyone, he might get into trouble. A lot of them would say, if you tell anyone anything like this, I'll go to jail and it'll be your fault. So how can you possibly speak up as a child? And then as time goes on and the shame gets deeper and the humiliation that you've been abused and you haven't spoken up and what a horrible person I am and how weak I am just compounds the shame and the silence.
Yeah, wow. And what might be a sort of crunch point where someone thinks, oh, now is the time that I want to speak up about it, or after all those years?
It's often when there's a significant thing happening in their lives. So it might be the birth of the first child. It might be when they get married. It might be when they finally decide, I'm not going to go to church anymore. Like, it could be a whole bunch of things that might just tip them into, no, this is not okay, and now I'm just really angry about it and I'm going to lash out and tell people.
Yeah, maybe perhaps when, if they do have children, when a child reaches the same age that they were when it happened to them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
That's another classic one, yeah.
But is it so much worse in churches than it is in the rest of society, because there's this expectation that, everyone is above reproach and the minister is absolutely almost God-like kind of figure, and therefore, we want to hide this, we want to keep this on the down low. And would there be that extra level of, I can't talk about this because no one will believe me?
When you say, is it worse in churches because of all those reasons, it's not statistically worse in churches in that sense, but in the sense that you're describing of the layers of guilt and shame that are added, I think it would be much harder for someone who's been abused by a priest or the youth group leader who everybody loves, or someone that society holds up as a pillar to actually come forward. But even in football clubs or teachers that everyone loves, it's not so much the religious aspect of it as the shame of being the one to bring down the person that everyone loves.
Right.
I mean, I think, I know that we're kind of diving into the church aspect of things here, but I was going to say so many institutions, I can't even remember where it first started. Did it actually start with the Catholic Church? And now it seems to have snowballed out. So we all know that, it's surf life-saving clubs, it's
Scouts.
it's
Daycare.
it's everyone, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously the fact that people are being prosecuted and there's a lot more awareness, a lot more media about this and a lot more exposure, is that not deterring this, or are perpetrators just getting better at hiding it?
Can I let you know in about 20 years? Would that be okay? You won't know. We won't know. But it does take that long for many, many people to speak up. It seems like complaints are getting less within churches in the professional standards units. But who knows why? Is that because so many of the historic complaints have now been dealt with? And so we'll know about the current ones in 20, 25 years' time. Or we might get a trickle coming through now. But we had many, many historic complaints coming into us when the professional standards units first opened up, because at last people had a place to go to.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. Is it that perpetrators of these hideous crimes are finding other ways to do it? Is it the increase in access on the internet? Is it that's actually meaning that these folk aren't pouncing on kids in real life, but they're using kids to spread pornography around, child sexual assault around on the internet? So the other interesting thing is with intrafamilial abuse. So within families, the statistics are no different within institutions or religious institutions or outside religious institutions. It's all the same stats, that there are, this many kids get abused. However, within families, there are many more abusive men usually, and it's usually girls who are the victims. But there are less victims per perpetrator because granddad or Uncle John or whoever have access to a limited number of kids within families. With institutional abuse, it's usually males doing the abusing and a larger number of male victims in this case. And each person doing the abusing has many, many, many more victims. So, for example, I remember one fellow that we worked with, the piano teacher that I mentioned before. I went to court when he finally got arrested and charged. I was at the court each day just to listen to the trial. I was sitting in the back of the court were a couple of guys that had been to one of the schools he taught music at a number of years before. They were in their 30s now. One of them had flown from England to come and see him get done. So in talking to them, they were in the same year at school, in this particular school, and they knew of 4 other boys that he had sexually molested. So they thought there are 6 of them in their year that he sexually abused, and he was teaching for 20 years. Yeah. So you can do this there. And the police were saying to us within the church that he was being, music leader and teaching the kids in the church, they thought there were upwards of about 60 boys that he would have been molesting over a decade or 15 years. So that's a lot of victims for one bloke.
Yeah,
it is.
And also, I mean, how effective do you think things are today? Like in the Anglican Church anyway, there's a thing called safe ministry training. And also, don't you need a police check now to work with kids in churches?
With voluntary work, you need a working with children check. The working with children check, you can be assured that someone who gets a working with children check has not been imprisoned for a child-related offence that carries a prison sentence of 2 years or more. I think that's the description of a working with children check. But in most denominations around Australia, there are safe ministry education programs that most people are required to do in order to volunteer in churches. And what that does, it's fantastic. And the people running these programs and devising the programs and putting them out there and doing the admin for it all, please thank them. They're doing such a fantastic job. And what it's doing, it's not going to convince a perpetrator of abuse not to abuse.
Yes.
But what it's doing is opening the eyes of everyone around in the congregation to be noticing things that could be alarm bells. So I think that it's probably happening less in churches now because of that, or it's being discovered earlier because of that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've noticed has been put in place in the last kind of 5-10 years has been the idea that a youth leader, for example, is never alone with one child. It's never one-on-one. It's always got to be 2 leaders, and a male and a female. Also, if it's looking after little kids, that it's a woman taking the little kid to the toilet. It's just changing the rules, driving.
Not that women are...
No, that's true.
Totally trustworthy. I just feel like we have to say that.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Yeah. But and also driving, it can't be like a youth leader is driving one kid home. You know, it's got to be a couple of adults in the car, which... I mean, it's stuff like that, but it's just, as you say, it's not going to eliminate it. No. And people, because we're evil, and sinful, will always find a way around that if that's what we want to be doing. If you want to abuse a child, you'll find a way.
That is true. So there's those kind of rules, for want of a better word, strong recommendations, we might call them, came in around 2003, 2004, around then. Churches started to take on board putting in some child-safe policies in their churches, which is great if you've got a well-resourced church and you've got lots of leaders. But if you're living in Wingy Up in the back of nowhere and you've got, 6 kids in your youth group and you've only got one person who can do it, or 12 kids in Westwell and there's Mrs. Smith who's the only person there, it does get very difficult in our country areas. And I don't think we think enough about how we might be able to resource our poorer resourced churches. And then we can start talking about Indigenous churches as well, and how the statistics are quite different in Indigenous churches, and how they have brought in some kind of safe ministry policies is a bit different as well.
Yeah, you talked earlier about this sort of grooming process. What does that actually involve?
Grooming is... If you're a chappie who wants to sexually molest children, then a church is an ideal place. But the first person that you have to gain the trust of is the senior minister, because you're doing the decisions. So present yourself as a lovable, adorable, very, very enthusiastic Christian fellow, and he's either married or not married. Statistically, there's not much difference. You're very keen, and boy, the last church you were at, they loved you, and very unfortunate that you had to leave, but the church closed down. Sorry, I can't give you the minister's number for a reference check, but I don't know where he is now. But I was doing this for 12, 13 years in that church, and everybody loved me. And so, and come over for dinner and groom, and I'm a wonderful human being. And then you'll do the same with probably 1 or 2 of people who were in leadership positions in the church. And then you'll spot the children that you think you might like to groom. And so you've got to groom the parents first. So you've got to get their attention and ingratiate yourself to them. There are plenty of ways to do that. And by the way, if you're ever really stuck for a babysitter, very, very happy to do that. And I'm very happy to come to your place, because I know how difficult it is to get your kids ready when you're going out, and on and on and on. So it does take a while. I saw some interviews once with people who had sexually molested kids in churches, and they had been found guilty and they were in prison. And it was a research study that was done quite a number of years ago now, but they got an agreement. It was American. They got an agreement that if these men went on camera and were filmed confessing things, that they wouldn't have an extra prison sentence put on them. So they actually got these fellows telling what was a bit more of the truth. And one of them talked about how he took about 3 to 4 years to set things up in a church so that he could access the kids in this particular youth group.
How front of mind was it for him? Was it very conscious?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Wow. These men are very, very targeted. Absolutely targeted.
Wow.
The men who are sexually abused children who are extrafamilial abusers are not usually opportunistic. Some of them are.
Right.
The intrafamilial ones are much more opportunistic. You know, when the parents go out and Uncle John's got them, or when the kids come over and I find myself in a room with one of them, or it's just more opportunistic. But the ones who come into churches in order to sexually molest children, they're nasty pieces of humans.
Yeah. So I would imagine it's true with all the institutions. Like, they've in the past, they've just been fabulous for them. Like, they're just a recruiting ground. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there might actually be genuine people who are, enthusiastically wanting to, be part of the church and invite the senior pastor over for dinner and,
I don't want to step completely outside my remit. No. Like, just a kind of slightly lateral point. So one of the things that's always struck me is, kind of not entirely helpful, is that people say if the Catholic clergy could get married, this wouldn't happen. And I've always gone, I don't think this is true. I mean, I'm not saying the Catholic clergy couldn't get married, like that's a whole other thing that I'm not entering into. All I'm thinking is that actually married people do these things. So the whole marriage thing doesn't solve anything, thank you very much, if these people are going to do it.
Yeah, well, it's just like Jen just said, like it's 50-50, right? You were saying single or married doesn't make much difference?
No.
I would be asked all the time about this particular question. And it's the wrong way around of thinking about it. It's not that, this poor Catholic man is a little sex-starved, let's give him a wife. It's that the Catholic clergy do not marry. What a perfect place to go if you'd like to actually sexually abuse children.
Okay. A career path.
It's a career path, absolutely. So it's much more attractive to someone who would like to sexually molest children without the hindrance of a wife around.
Okay. But hopefully not too much anymore.
Just feeling really, really deep down sad and, genuinely sad for the legitimately called to being a priest.
Yes, yeah.
Like the poor things to think that there is this element that's walking around with them.
But it would be the minority, right?
Oh, I was just about to say that. There's such a small minority that please don't think that every Catholic priest
No. Well, I mean, this is why I'm bringing it up, because I think that people do jump to those awful kind of feelings, and, people turn on the church in all its different kind of guises, thinking, that every minister or priest or whatever is just a horrible when it is the minority.
Absolutely. And in fact, in other denominations, if you're a single man in that denomination, you get looked at askance as well.
Yes. But I mean, it expands out to the rest of society. I feel like we've become a bit more sort of hyper vigilant. Like if you see like a grandfatherly figure, an older guy walking with a little girl hand in hand, you kind of, what a sad sort of place we've come to that we think, wonder if that's legit.
I know. My husband's an older father, and he's often got my young kids climbing all over him. And he goes, oh, gosh, I don't know if what these random people in the park
might think. Yeah, exactly. I know. What a world. What have we come to? But Gorgeous, what do you think we can be doing better as churches to protect children?
I think we are certainly on the right path. It's about educating the pew sitters in the churches who may not think they have anything to say or anything to see, but the people sitting in the pews in the churches are the ones who can see things that are suspicious. And with so many of these things that came up when I was working in the professional standards unit, there would be at least one, usually 2, 3, 4 people in any church that would say to me afterwards, oh, gosh, I saw things, but I just never spoke up about it. So actually giving people some tools to spot things and to actually encourage people to speak up, whether they're right or wrong, that's not up to them to judge. they're just handing the suspicion over to others who can then follow it through.
Yeah.
And I think that is really the only way that our society can be protecting the kids.
Yeah.
Is to have enough courage to speak up when you see something that just doesn't sit right with you.
Yeah. Better to be proven wrong than, not to say anything, isn't it?
You don't need to be a horrible human, though, who says it in a really awkward way to the minister, or there are ways and ways of raising these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jen, what I want to know is, like, you've seen, a lot of hurt, a lot of harm, and a lot of violence over the years and abuse. How do you yourself sort of stay whole and not be affected by any of this?
I cling to a solid rock. So I cling to God and trust His goodness in creation and His goodness in leading and guiding His people. I don't understand why these things happen. I never will understand why these things happen. But I do know that it breaks God's heart to see children and vulnerable people being abused by others. So just clinging to Him and to His perspective on the world as much as we can understand His perspective on the world, and knowing that it's for a time, that this world is for a time, and there's it's a really broken and sad place, and human beings, may I say, are really overrated. We just do horrible things to each other so much of the time. So expect it, in a sense. If we expect a beautiful, happy life and world, we're just going to be bitterly disappointed. And just enjoying the real delights that God does give us in life.
Well, it's been delightful chatting with you today about what's a very, very heavy and challenging topic, and a lot of perhaps the women 40 plus listening to this might have had children in this situation or might know of someone who is. And so I think it's been great to shed some light on this and to realise that there are options and ways to deal with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Gorgo, we hope you enjoyed this episode and we adore that you listen in, but we'd love to hear more from you. What you thought of this ep, what you'd like us to chat about in future, and we'd really like to thank everyone who's got in touch with us so far and suggested ideas and made comments. Thank you, gorgeous people.
So whatever you have to say, search hopepodcasts.com.au and hit the big pink button that says contact the team. We'll get back to you.
And remember, if you'd like to send us expensive gifts, just park that Lamborghini in the Hope 103.2 foyer. They won't mind.
Join us next week on She Wasn't Born Yesterday. We really look forward to your company.
Hope 103.2. Thanks for listening.